As far as ending your jewelry goes, there are a few things you can do. You can either tie it, use clasps, or use the bead and loop method. Tying is probably the strongest way, but for removable jewelry, I'd go with the clasps. But if you like the bead and loop method, I'll show you how to do that as well. Here's an example of a necklace we're going to use for the bead and loop ending method. First, you want to choose a bead to end it with. I chose that bead because it goes with the rest of the necklace. After that, we tie a knot in which the bead we chose will fit tightly into, like that. Once we have that, it's a matter of getting the bead on the other side of the necklace. So, string it through the working strings like this. Then once you've evenly got it on there about 3/4 of an inch or so away from the end, you can either loop it back like this and then tie a knot like that, or you can just tie an overhand knot after it, which is what I'm going to do. As you can see, this knot's not big enough to hold the bead in, so what I'm going to do is tie one more knot. Now that I've got a knot big enough to stop the bead from coming out, trim the ends, and then we'll give it a little test. We're good to go. Now when you're doing this, make sure that the loop side has a tight enough knot. If it's too loose, it'll come out easily. But then again, if it's too tight, the bead won't go through. So it's good to have the bead in there when tying the knot. That way you know exactly how big to make the loop. To end your necklace with clasps, you're going to need a few things. First, you're going to need some end connectors. These will be used to attach the whole thing to the end of the necklace. After that, you're going to need some split rings, and these are used to connect the end connectors to the clasp. And lastly, you're going to need the clasp itself. I prefer barrel clasps because they're subtle, look good, and they're inexpensive. Do what you want and it'll work well. To get the clasp ending apparatus assembled, we're going to need to grab one of the split rings, one of the end connectors, and half of the clasp. Now what we're going to do is squeeze the end connector and the clasp into the split ring. The easiest way to do this is to first get the end connector into the split ring because it has a kind of a thin edge. Now the best way to get the clasp part in is to get the end connector into the ring enough that there's a gap, and then get the clasp into the gap and simply follow it in. Now that we've got this half done, just do it again with the other half and we'll be ready to move on. The first step to ending your jewelry with clasps is to tie an overhand knot on the working strings about 3/4 of an inch away from the last stitch. Do this on each side and we'll be ready to move on. After you've got the ends of the necklace tied, you're going to want to grab your ending clasp apparatus. Grab it in your needle nose pliers so that the opening in the end connector is facing outwards. After that, we're going to crimp it onto the necklace. Be sure to crimp it really tight around the part before the knot on the working strings. After that, repeat it for the other side and you'll be done. Alright, and now that we've finished making the necklace, I'll give you a few tips on care and maintenance.